Game with Chums Podcast. I'm your host this week, Raw, joined as always by the bearded man himself. Wait a minute, we've both got beards and we're both wearing glasses. What's going on here, Paul?
What's up?
We're just the same. We're the same person, just
Yeah,
in different windows.
yeah.
But how are you, Paul?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, just chilling here,
You look
relaxing.
extremely chilled.
Yeah, I feel extremely chilled. Yeah, I'm good, man.
What have you been up to in the has it been 2 or 3 weeks since we last did this? I'm losing count of the flow of time at this point. I think it's been 2 weeks.
About that, yeah. 2 weeks.
So what have you been up to? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been drinking?
What have I been? I've not been up to too much. I had COVID, so I haven't really been doing much
That's a
recently.
good point. I didn't ask you how you were.
Yeah.
How are you?
At the moment, I'm pretty good. I got tested positive for COVID about a week ago, and yeah, it felt like a really bad cold. I think the thing that really annoyed me is probably the fatigue, because it makes you very like just. I remember I bent down to pick something up, and I was just like that. I was like, wow, this is really just to pick something up from the floor really took it out of me. So yeah, that was something, and the continuous coughing is just drives you crazy after a while, because you just constant. It's just like something stuck in your throat or tickling your throat, and it was just constant coughing. But then some of the effects I had was, which I read is part of the Omicron, is like runny nose and high temperature, which I had. So that was fun. But yeah, I did another test and I'm negative now. But I went for a run yesterday, and my God, that nearly killed me. It took me so long to catch my breath back. And I kind of like, I just wanted to see if how far I can run, and then didn't run very far. And then I got home and I was just like this throughout the rest of the day, like just trying to just catch my breath. I just felt like I couldn't catch my breath at all, which was a bit worrying.
Want to give yourself a bit more time to recover, because this shit lingers. I'm still a little bit off now, and I had it March. Yeah, I had it like 2 months ago, and yeah, my throat felt like I'd been gargling glass, and I was coughing so much, and I was so short of breath that there were times that if I stood up and I had a coughing fit immediately after standing up, I nearly fucking blacked out.
Yeah, it's not
Just
great,
from lack
man.
of breath. It's not fun at all.
I mean, I avoided it for like 2 years, and I got it as soon as I went to a gig, the electrical bar, and I think I must have picked it up there, because that was just like wall to wall people, and so I caught it there. I sort of started feeling the effects like Sunday evening or Monday morning, and I kept thinking it was just through, like, because we went out for your birthday for a couple of drinks. I thought it was just alcohol, and the effects of like going to a gig and going in the mosh pit. But yeah, it's just started to. I was just like, wow, this is really affecting my body. And I took a test and it didn't appear, and I was like, okay, so I'm all right. Then I took another one a day later, because I was like, this is like 2 days later. I was like, this isn't right, man. And like, if it's a cold, I should easily be recovering. And it turned out I tested positive, and I was just like, and that's the day when it really like hit me. I think the symptoms just caught up, and it just like knocked me for shit. I was just like, I was just lying in bed. I was like, I'm really struggling to get out of bed. I was like really struggling. I had to, like, when you're so tired, but you have to force yourself to like sort of make a really, really big concerted effort to get out of bed. And when you do that, it feels like you've used up so much energy.
Yeah.
This is not right. So yeah, it's not great. But yeah, I feel better now. I still feel that some of the effects, like fatigue and aching, like body ache. It's like when you do loads of weights. You know what I mean? And then like the day after, you get like a numb sort of feeling around your muscles, because your body's like is rebuilding itself. Your muscles are rebuilding. That's what it felt like. I was like, wow, this feels like I've done a major weight session. So yeah, just recovering from that. And what I've been.
It's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, now that I've had it, you know, I kind of don't want to get it again, but I've got a feeling it's going to happen. Just because, like in the UK and England, we just sort of, well, I think it's like the government's just like, well, fuck it, let's just get on with it, and you know, let's not talk about it anymore.
Pandemic's over now, guys. Go back to work. Go back to spending money.
Yeah, but they, you know, our beloved Tory government have increased the cost of living. Yeah. Yeah, they go, I'll go back to work, but we've increased the train fares, we've increased the food, we've increased heating, electricity, everything's gone up, you know, to pay for the 2 years that the economy is slumped, but you know, they've increased our taxes and everything like that. So basically everything's just gone up, and again,
except for wages.
Except for yeah, our wages haven't gone up, they've just stayed still, and it's the people, the working people always suffer from, like, always had to bear the brunt. I mean, you could tax corporations and the extreme,
don't
the work,
be silly, Paul.
The 5%.
It sounds like communism, Paul.
The 10% of
calling even the police on you.
The 5% of the country that's like billionaires, or it could tax them. But you know, the rich always make a big thing about like being taxed. So they like, oh, well, we're getting off topic, but they always go on about, you always hear it going in news, and people like saying, oh, we shouldn't be taxed. Why do we have to be taxed more? But no,
you've got literal billions
and millions, and that's why they take their money into offshore saving accounts, or live abroad, or tax havens and stuff like that. Brilliant.
And lobby governments to make sure that there are loopholes in the law so that they can avoid paying tax.
Yeah, so then it's people like us who just suffer the most, and people having to go to food banks and stuff like that now. So it's well, it was a thing already, but now it's even more. So either what you're going to pay for, your heating or your food. It's just crazy, like the way that how what's happening here. And we've had the local elections here, and the Tories taken a battering, which I knew they would. In my where I live, it's Tories are not even an issue. It's always a two-part, well, one-party borough, which is Labour. But I didn't vote Labour. I always vote Green, because in general elections I vote Labour, but in local elections I vote Green, because like Labour is like setting off like land and stuff like that, council land, even though they're supposed to be the party of the people, and selling it off to like developers to kick out people who are in like council accommodations and stuff like that, to bring in like more money and stuff like that. Just you know what I mean, it's just like, it's sort of like a gentrification sort of thing happening in a lot of Lambeth boroughs. So yeah, but other than that, man, like apart from my political and health, I haven't been doing too much. I streamed last night. I streamed some Dragon Age Origins. Been playing more of that, and I've forgotten, like, it's been like, I played it, I think the last time I played it was 2010, 12 years ago, man. And I had to whip out the walkthrough, which I have here. This is like, I bought that when I bought the game, and I had to whip that out because I was like, what the fuck? Some of the things I just don't know what I'm doing, because it's not streamlined. There's a lot of things you can miss out.
Let's be honest, you need a walkthrough if that's like your introduction to sort of hardcore PC RPGs. You kind of need a walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's not a simple game.
You notice it with more BioWare games, that they got more and more sort of simplified, very mainstream, very on rails. So I had to whip out the walkthrough for certain things in the because it's a lot of stuff you can just miss. Like games now, if you got like a not plot critical, but something to do with your party, if there's an item that you need, it is part of their like a mission. You can't miss it.
Can't miss it. Yeah.
But in this game, you can miss certain items that you can give to your party as gifts, which will increase their affinity to you, or like part of their part. It's kind of like their side missions, side stories. But you can miss it in this. So I had to go through this and go, okay, if I missed this, if I missed that. But yeah, it's old school PC sort of RPGs, man. I mean, like now these days we're very handheld. That's the right word. Like with modern RPGs, even with like I think like games like Witcher 3, they have like branching and different stories. If you miss something up, you can, if you do something wrong, you can miss something or something like that. But even then, that's
Probably. I've played it once, so I can't remember. Yeah, probably.
It's still pretty, still like in that
it's
sort
still
of
a very streamlined
game, but like Dragon Age Origins, compare that to 2, it's completely different. But
yeah, last time I played Origins was just before Inquisition came out, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of forgot what kind of game this was. And what was that, 2015, I think Inquisition
2014, I think it came out, or 15, it could be.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, that sort of game is very much like open world, and a lot of faff about in there. I think everyone's getting kind of sick with open world games now as well, because it's a common complaint that you have an open world, but there's not much in there to do. It's a lot of fetch quests, a lot of like, those sort of things. Like I think like the fad of open world is probably going now. I don't know what the new fad is now. There's got to be something new.
Yeah.
I know like you got like games like Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild, sort of those sort of games where you can just don't have to complete the story. You can just sort of do whatever you want in the world. But yeah, I think open worlds are sort of a thing of the past. But yeah, man. So that's what I've been doing. But what have you been up to, dude? What have you been playing?
What have I been playing? I have been playing Doom Eternal, finally. It's been on my backlog pretty much since it came out, and I remember reading some impressions about it online around the time it came out, and some people were unhappy with it and felt it was nowhere near as good as Doom 2016, because you have to kind of like micromanage your resources a lot. And I remember a lot of people really didn't like that, so I kind of put it off for ages. And we're coming up towards the traditional E3 period. Obviously, there is no E3, but coming up to that period of the year, and there are rumors that id Software are going to announce their new game. So I thought I better catch up on their latest release, and it's amazing. It's so good, like it's absurdly good, and the resource management stuff works for me. Like you have 3 ways to get sort of resources. So if you use the glory kills, which are in Doom 2016, so like when you injure an enemy and it starts flashing, then you click the right stick and you get like a finishing move basically, and that gives you health. You use your chainsaw and that gives you ammo, and then if you light people up with your flamethrower, that gives you armor. So you just kind of get into this, like it's a very fast-paced game as well, and you've got pretty good mobility. You've got like double jumps and dashes and everything. So you're just constantly like dancing around the stage, looking for fodder enemies to use to farm for resources to take out the bigger enemies, and it's just really good. The combat is fantastic. The movement's really good. It's fast paced. The music, obviously, music was a big point in Doom 2016. It's amazing in Eternal as well. It all just comes together really well, and there's a lot more variety as well, because Doom 2016 you just had Mars and like human facilities on Mars and Hell, and that was it. And in this, you go to like 3 different planets as well as Hell and Mars, and some of it looks like it belongs in like Warcraft or something. It's proper like high fantasy stuff, which kind of took me by surprise. It looks really good. It's got ray tracing now on Series X, which is very impressive. Runs at pretty much locked 60 FPS despite everything that's going on. It's just that development team are absolute wizards, and I'm very, very excited to see what they come out with next. The rumors are they're doing a Quake game, but I don't know how true that is. But yeah, this is a very, very good game. I was playing it the other night, and it just everything clicked, and I was like, I think this might be one of the best games I've ever played. Like, it's just stupidly good. So I'm excited to see what id Software come up with next. As for other stuff I've been playing, I've kind of been dabbling in a few things because of one thing I did receive in the last 2 weeks, which is, just lean off camera for a second. This got my Steam Deck. Eventually, look at it. It's a big damn thing. It's like bigger than my head, and I don't have a small head. But yeah, got that. So I've just been installing some games and seeing how they run. I installed Wolfenstein Youngblood because I really like the reboot Wolfenstein games, but I've never finished Youngblood, so I thought I'd play it on that, and it runs ridiculously well on that. So I've just been playing a bit of that, getting some emulators up and running, trying to get like just some old retro games playing on it. But I need to get a micro SD card for that, so I've got a bit more space because I've got the 256 gig one. But yeah, I'm very impressed with it, very happy with it. After it eventually turned up, because Parcel Force told me it was out for delivery on a Wednesday morning, and then it never turned up. And then Wednesday evening, they told me it had been returned to the depot. Then it was out again on Thursday morning for delivery. Then it got returned to the depot again. So at that point, I was like, well, this driver's stolen my Steam Deck. And I was very, very angry. But then it turned up on Friday afternoon. So at least it finally turned up. So that's what I've been playing, what I've been watching. I've been trying to watch Rising the Shield Hero Season 2 because I really liked Season 1, and Season 2 so far is very bad. It's just very, very boring. And I don't know, Season 1 ended on this huge cliffhanger, and they've just kind of ignored it and just gone on some completely different arc that I don't think anyone cares about, and it's just not very good. So I started watching Fruits Basket instead because that's been on my watch list for ages, and I'm all about that right now. And kind of slice of life anime with some supernatural elements. Very much enjoying it. Other than that, yeah, just messing around with my Steam Deck really, mainly. Trying to see how games run, see if I can get emulators working. But it's about what I've been up to.
Okay, cool.
So I think we'll move on to the news section because some stuff actually happened over the last 2 weeks, which seems to be a bit of a rarity in this kind of pre-traditional E3 period. I keep having to say traditional E3 period because now there is no E3 anymore. That sucks. I still think that sucks. But anyway, I guess the big one, Paul, was Embracer continue to embrace studios. I think this one came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone saw this one coming, but they've purchased Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal from Square Enix, plus all their most of their IPs, the big ones anyway, like Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and a bunch of other things, for $300 million, which seems like peanuts. I'm surprised. Like, Sony bought Insomniac before all these big like publisher acquisitions that Microsoft's been doing, and they paid $229 million for them, and they had almost no IP. And now Embracer have bought 3 studios plus, at the very least, one very big IP in Tomb Raider for only $300 million. That's crazy. I don't know if you remember this, Paul, but Microsoft made a timed exclusive deal for Rise of the Tomb Raider. I don't know if you remember that. It was kind of a small little thing. People didn't really talk about it very much. Apparently that cost $100 million. And now that studio, that IP, plus 2 more studios, and God knows how many other IP have been bought for 3 times that. That's just insane. But what are your thoughts on that, Paul? Because Embracer have over 100 studios now. Most of them are very small, but they do have some big ones like Gearbox and Saber Interactive. These are probably going to be their biggest ones.
Yeah. It came out of nowhere, that one. It's surprising, to be honest with you. These are some big IPs that they've acquired. Twitter, as always, was aflame with rumors and speculations and people's thoughts. I don't know. I don't think like Square Enix really like valued their a lot of their Western IPs. If I'm going to be fair, I think they always sort of more focused heavily on the Japanese sort of IPs that they own. So maybe they just didn't want to deal with the Western audiences anymore, really. So they just like, just sell them off. Who bought them? Embracer. To be honest, I didn't hear much of Embracer before, and I looked into them, and they're quite, like they own a lot of studios. But I was like, who the hell are Embracer?
Yeah, because they used to be called THQ Nordic.
Oh, there you are. Fuck,
It was Nordic Games, who are like a Swedish
I know who they are.
publisher, and then they bought out the THQ stuff when THQ went bankrupt and renamed themselves THQ Nordic, and now they've renamed themselves Embracer.
Yeah,
which is a name that makes sense, I guess, seeing as they've been buying up everything.
I kind of I don't know. I like the idea. I like that. It's just with the how this generation's going, where everyone seemed to be buying it, Sony buying studios and Xbox buying publishers. I kind of like another sort of person buying IP, because this could have easily been like Sony buying Tomb Raider or Xbox. So I kind of like there's another third party out there that's willing to have these games multi-platforms. Because as much as I like the idea of Bethesda and who else got bought? Activision being bought by Xbox. I quite like there's someone else who's willing to spend money and buy to have these games multi-platform, because the way things going, everything seems to be being gobbled up by PlayStation and Xbox. A lot of people say Xbox got monopoly. I don't see that. Look at Embracer's just got 100 studios, and there's developers with that Xbox have bought that have taken like either like a financial beating or critical beating, and then workplace beat, like some workplace practices in Activision have been questionable. So Xbox have kind of like came over and just bought them out. Maybe they're having a clear out.
Let's hope so.
So they always seem to look for well-known publishers or developers that are having there's rumors of Ubisoft, but I don't know how much that's true. And did they really need Ubisoft? I don't know. They kind of make samey games. If there was going to be an acquisition, I kind of want it to be either a Japanese studio or some probably more of the Japanese studios, because I think that's what Xbox are lacking. But I think it's good. I mean, if Square Enix are willing to sell them off, then maybe they were making a loss, or like maybe they want to focus more on their Japanese market.
Yeah, I think it came out just after the news broke. It came out that I think this was actually in Square Enix's financials that Crystal Dynamics runs a very, very, very small profit. I think they were running at like less than 2%, whereas like the wider business is 15% or something. And then Eidos Montreal was running at a small loss. So they've basically just offloaded them, like, because people were like, "Why the hell have they sold them for 300 million? That's absurd money. Surely they could have like got into a bidding war with them." Like Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal are very talented studios. Like, they made the Tomb Raider reboots, and they made Deus Ex reboots, and the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which is genuinely really good. So people were just like astounded at 300 million, but I think it's just, I don't. Yeah. So I think people are just very surprised at the cost of it, because these are big studios. But I think it's just Square they probably don't see any chance for growth with them, because they've always kind of scapegoated these studios. Like anytime they have a loss or they don't make the profits they expect, it's always the Western stuff that they kind of, I say scapegoat, but I guess they have the numbers. And the studios just weren't running a profit. They're in expensive places as well, like Santa Monica, California, and Montreal. So I guess they just wanted to offload them. They just think, like, they're your problem now, Embracer. You take care of them. But my worry is that Embracer make like AA level games. They don't make big expensive stuff. They can't with how many studios they've got, I guess. the biggest thing they make is Borderlands, and 2K foots the bill for that because they own that IP. So I'm worrying now. Like, I'm glad these are going to stay multi-platform, like you said, but I'm worrying they're not going to be as like big, expensive, shiny AAA games as we're used to, from the likes of like the Tomb Raider reboots and Deus Ex reboots and Guardians of the Galaxy, because they're not cheap games to make. So I'm a bit worried in that sense. But also remember that Crystal Dynamics are working on Perfect Dark with Microsoft, so I wonder what happens after that, because obviously they'll finish this game, but if that's a big hit, what do Microsoft do if like Embracer decide they don't want to go back into a co-dev agreement? But I guess it remains to be seen, and this is going to tie into our main topic a bit, which we'll get to. Just run through the last couple of news bits. There's another Square Enix one, I guess, which kind of ties into this. Outriders, which they published, and I believe they own the IP of that. That was made by People Can Fly. It was meant to be their kind of big play at the looter shooter genre. It came out last April, not this April 2021, and it didn't turn a profit in all of 2021. So People Can Fly made no money on it. I don't know if it's since made a profit. I haven't seen anything on that, but in 8 months of 2021, they hadn't recouped. Square Enix hadn't recouped all the costs, so People Can Fly didn't make any money, which is a shame. But I thought it was a pretty bang average game, to be honest. It launched into Game Pass, which was probably a sign of Square Enix thinking it wasn't going to do very well. Did you play Outriders at all, Paul? I can't remember if you did or not.
I'm not into looter shooters. Never have been.
It was very average. I didn't even finish the campaign. It had some interesting ideas and some cool abilities, but that was about it, really. Storytelling was pretty bad. It was kind of janky feeling. But yeah, it doesn't seem to have found an audience, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame with our channel, because me and you, we have our games that we like, and there's genres we don't like. So that's why you don't see those sort of videos on our channel, like sort of like an Elden Ring, like Dark Souls sort of gameplay on our channel, because I'm just not really into it. I mean, if we had like if we had to, we probably would play it if the audience was there, and if like people go and play it, we would. But at the moment, we don't have that sort of audience at the moment. We have sort of like a kind of very small audience, and they seem to like more of our vlog stuff than they do our gameplay. But if there came a time when people go, you got to play these sort of loot shooters, which you do play, you play Destiny and stuff like that. But if it came to like we have to play certain genres of games just because we are a big gaming channel, then we would do it. But at the moment, we don't need to do it. So
we don't need to, and the videos would be bad because we don't enjoy those games. Yeah. So we'd just be sitting going, this game sucks. Like an hour.
I mean, you want our authentic sort of reactions, and I think we would be faking it to a degree. And maybe, I don't know, some channels do it. I'm not going to say who, but there are probably certain channels that do it, or maybe they have a big enough like sort of video presenters that everyone has their own sort of distinctive tastes. But at the moment, just the two of us, we have quite similar-ish tastes, but we don't like the certain games genres. So yeah.
And last bit of news for this week, also a game that we don't like and don't play. Fortnite is available to play for free on Xbox Cloud Gaming. I forget the actual full name of it. I just always call it xCloud, which is stupid why they didn't just call it that officially. But yeah, if you go to xbox.com/play on a device that has a browser, I guess, you can play Fortnite for free, like completely free. You don't have to have a Game Pass subscription or anything. So that's kind of a big deal for people on iPhone, because Fortnite got removed from the iOS store when Apple and Epic started their lawsuit against one another. So now it's kind of back on iOS, entirely bypassing Apple. So Apple not going to see any money from it. So that's kind of like a bit of a spit in the eye of Apple.
Good for them. Like big multi-billion, trillion-dollar billion-dollar corporations are not.
I don't give a shit about Apple's cash flow. Couldn't care less.
Yeah. I mean, like you can't. Like I heard, like some of their iPhones, you can't get there doesn't come with a charger, so you have to buy a charger for your fucking phone. I think
the
there was
Nintendo new 3DS ploy, eh?
Yeah, and
Don't get a plug with it.
I know Samsung's done this. I'm not happy, but there's no audio jack. So with iPhones, there hasn't been an audio jack for a while, so you have to buy their AirPods. And I don't think any other software works. It has to be an Apple product for it to work on an Apple phone. I think that's how it is. I'm not sure. I might be wrong.
Idea.
I don't know. I've never had an Apple phone. I use an Apple Mac just for work, but that's about it. Other than that, I treat it with very much disdain, like a stepchild or something like
that. The red-headed stepchild.
Yeah, that's the one
of the tech world.
Yeah,
but yeah. So if you're on iOS and you wanted to play Fortnite again, then there's your chance. Completely free to play. Obviously, it's streaming, so it's not like playing natively on your device. But hey, it's the only choice you've got if you're on iOS.
Yeah, man. Saying that we don't play certain big games or certain genres, we did actually do videos on Fortnite.
I mean, we played it like 3 or 4 times, and we were like, okay, that's done now.
On the Switch as well. I think we did a couple of videos on that.
I think we did one on the Switch and one on the Xbox One X. I think.
I don't know why. Like both the same game. No, I don't know what we were expecting. Maybe we just wanted to try it out on the Switch.
Yeah, I think it was just a big deal that it launched on the Switch, so we were like, let's jump on the bandwagon.
I don't get it. I don't think the games are very good at all, man.
Yeah, it's not that we dislike the genre.
No, I play Apex Legends.
Yeah, we played PUBG quite a lot. Paul plays a lot of Apex. I've played some Apex. So we're it's not like we dislike battle royales. That was the first time we played Fortnite, so we were like, oh, it's the big battle royale. Let's jump into it and give it a go. And just didn't really enjoy it. I don't get the building thing.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. That's the end of the news anyway. So onwards and upwards to the main topic of the show. So, coming in off the news portion, I guess, about Embracer buying a few of Square Enix's Western studios, kind of led to some rumours. That's the word. Completely forgot the word. But there were rumours a little while ago before this came out that I think it was Greg Miller from Kind of Funny Games was kind of suggesting he'd heard about Sony making a big acquisition, and a few other sort of insiders backed it up and said they'd heard rumblings as well. And in the wake of the Embracer news coming out, Jeff Grubb on Twitter, who seems to have some pretty good sources, seems to know what he's talking about, he posted a tweet saying Square Enix looking kind of streamlined right now or something like that, suggesting that they were selling off undesirable parts of the business so they could be acquired by someone else. And then when pressed, he admitted that he'd heard that Sony were looking into buying Square Enix. And then he tied it back and said, this is the big acquisition that I had heard about recently, or a few weeks ago, or however long it was. So I guess the question is, what do you reckon, Paul? Do you reckon Square Enix is going to get bought by Sony?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, man. It could be.
Surely anything's possible at this point.
Everything possible.
And anything has been happening.
I mean, yeah, they sold off like their undesirable Western studios. So maybe, they're streamlined so it'll be more affordable for Sony, because let's not forget, the difference between billion-dollar company and multi-trillion-dollar company. To this day, like Microsoft are still in the top 10,
top two
biggest like profitable organizations. So they got absolute shit tons of money. The only thing that's stopping them from buying more money is obviously like you can't have a monopoly and the government regulations and stuff, which is a good thing that's brought in for that very reason, even though some companies still get away with having a monopoly on certain things. But yeah, I can see it happening. Sony and Square and Squaresoft, as they used to be known, have a good relationship. They've had a long relationship, especially in the PS1, PS2 era when there wasn't much competition for Sony. You just had Nintendo, and Nintendo have a good relationship with Square Enix. There's a lot of games on there that were are exclusive to, were exclusive or are exclusive to the PlayStation game platform. So I could see it. I mean, like these things, I think the people who get most affected are probably Nintendo, because like, yeah, they develop their own games, but they rely on like other Japanese studios for certain games. And having Square, if that is to be, if that was to be, it was to happen and make it exclusive, Nintendo will suffer from that, I think, as well. Since Nintendo, do they have the money to make it? That's not their in their DNA. They tend to develop games from within, and yeah, they do like make deals to have certain titles exclusive to PlayStation. Well, yeah, I kind of see like they're like everyone's forgotten about Nintendo. Like in this big war, there's just like Nintendo's just doing their thing, living off like money from Pokemon and Mario. How many? I mean, people complain about like Xbox or even PlayStation to a certain degree releasing the same game or milking a certain character. Nintendo been doing that for fucking years with Super Mario.
Yeah, that guy's still around.
He's still around, and they've had him do everything like Nintendo, like tennis, fucking football. You know what I mean?
Party games.
Those characters have just been placed in every sort of scenario you can think of, man. Like they had the Olympics, Nintendo Olympics with Mario in it and stuff like that. So
Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, like they do it. So like, I don't see why people complain about if like Xbox do milk a particular character, like sort of like with Gears, where Gears have got like Gears Tactics, stuff like that. Mario did this, and Nintendo did the same thing with the Mario franchise. So no one really complains about that, or if they do, like there's not very vocal. But I think when like they did it with Gears, there was a certain like people, you know, obviously like you get the fanboys from one side saying this about that, and yeah. So, but is it possible? Anything's possible, man. It kind of makes sense if to sell off certain non-profitable, like, I mean, let's just face it, like Sony don't need to buy like those studios with those IPs like Tomb Raider, because they got Uncharted. They don't really need it. So, and like Deus Ex, don't really need that. They got for Horizon Zero, the Horizon series. So, but what makes it more attractive once they sell that off and probably bring down the price is like having like get obviously like Final Fantasy and those sort of games owned, because I could see it happening. I mean, they've already timed exclusive the latest Final Fantasy. I mean, you got Final Fantasy remakes. It's still, I don't know what's happening there. Like that's under timed exclusivity. Maybe they will, once it comes out in part 2, that'll be timed again.
Yeah, it definitely will.
Yeah.
Unless Sony own them by then.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's face it. Like, I enjoyed parts of Final Fantasy remake, but there is it was just taking the piss, man. It's that one part where you're just in Midgar for the whole game, padded it out with meaningless side quests, which you didn't really have to do anyway. So yeah, they really like people saying, "Oh, you can't really have it on one game." Yes, you can. You can have it on one disc, man. They know what they're doing. Come on, man. It's like with Attack on Titan. Come on, you know what? You could have it all in one season.
There are extremely big games out there that have more content than Final Fantasy VII would have, kind of in comparison as like a modern title. Like The Witcher 3 is huge. Elden Ring is huge. Breath of the Wild is a very big game, albeit the story content isn't really anywhere near as much as a Final Fantasy game, but yeah, the world is huge. There's tons to do in it. They could do it. They just wanted to make it into parts so they could sell it and resell it. And yeah, we had a whole thing. We did a spoiler cast when we both finished Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Paul was kind of mixed on it, and I was pretty negative. But yeah, it's been over 2 years now since that came out, and it was. You look on the bloody box. Like, it's on the shelf there. I can't bother to grab it, but it says on the box, console exclusive till April 10th, 2021 or whatever. And it's been over 2 years now, and it's still not on Xbox. So fundamentally, I don't care about that title because I think it's a bad game. But it's just shit that it's still not on Xbox, and not only has nobody said anything about it from like Square Enix, the media haven't bothered asking about it. Like when we mentioned Rise of the Tomb Raider, and that was a big deal. And literally every interview that anyone in the fucking games media did on that game, the first question was, when's it coming to PlayStation? Where's that energy with Final Fantasy VII Remake on Xbox? Because we know that deal is up. Like, they extended it for 6 months for the DLC Intergrade, and that DLC came out 6 months ago. So where's the game? Nobody cares. But yeah, I'm not really that fussed about that. Final Fantasy 16, I'm mad that that's timed. But it also makes me question what is kind of the benefit, I guess, of Sony buying Square Enix if they're money hatting all the titles anyway. Like, they're getting de facto exclusivity. Would it not just be cheaper for them to just keep doing that than just outright buying them? Because buying them it'd be in the billions. It'd probably be under 10 billion, but it'd still be a lot of money. So yeah, I don't know. Where's the what's the value play, I guess? But you mentioned Nintendo as well. Obviously, they get a lot of their smaller games like Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy and Bravely Default. So what happens to that stuff if Sony buy Square Enix? Because I can't imagine Sony being all that interested in that. Sony are pretty much just interested in the big blockbuster games at this point. So would all those smaller things that Nintendo tends to get just get killed? Who knows? But I guess the question is, say this did happen, because you and me have both said at this point we're not really interested in the PS5. And again, for anyone that doesn't listen all the time, we have both owned all of Sony's home consoles up until the PS5. So it's not like we're just completely against PlayStation. But neither of us are really interested in PS5 at the moment. Most of Sony's first-party stuff doesn't really do anything for me. I think Paul's probably in the same boat there. But if they bought Square Enix, would that move the needle for you? Would that make you consider a PS5?
Really, no, to be honest. I haven't played Final Fantasy, was it 15? I got it on Xbox, but I'm still in the wrapper. I haven't played it. I just not really. I don't know. Like Final Fantasy, I like the series. I'm not a massive fan. I go to their orchestra. Was it the
Distant Worlds?
Distant Worlds. Been to that twice. Is it twice
so,
or 3
yeah.
times?
Twice.
It might be 3. Actually.
2 or 3.
I think 3. Yeah, been there 3 times. Love it. Love all that. Love the music. I love all that. I love the stories in there. But I'm not a massive. Like, I got to play Final Fantasy when it comes out. So I don't think it would make me get a PlayStation. I don't think like Square Enix are the studio they once were ever since they had the merger. I don't think they're that. I don't know. I think the best games are when they were Squaresoft. That makes sense.
I don't think many people would argue that, to be honest.
I mean, the drop in sort of on quality sort of dropped off. I think the last one they released was Final Fantasy X before the merger. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that was roundabout when it all started happening.
And yeah, people like 12, and maybe that was that. I think that was probably still the transitional period. 13, I fucking can't stand it. I know they're fans. I know you like it. 14 obviously is the MMO. 15, people liked it, but there was a lot of criticism for it.
It's very unfinished.
So there's not much. If they did, Sony did buy it, and people go, "Oh, Final Fantasy." I'm like, yeah. I mean, I liked Remake, but only because of the nostalgia for it, and everyone's been crying it for a while, and then we found out it was going to be in parts. I was like, oh. And I played it. I was like, yeah, there's some good parts, and then it was not. And then they start do what they do like in movies now, when it's an alternative timeline and all that shit. I'm just like, so it's not a remake. It's like just a new story now. Just why can't you just say that when the endless shit starts coming into it? And I was like, oh god, it's not a remake. It's not. I wouldn't mind if they just made a remake and just had that. But now it's just like, oh, you got the originals to play for. I was like, well, we wanted the remake, not like a. So you know what I mean?
We wanted the original, just really nice looking.
Like no, yeah, and it did start off that way, and then it got like not like a few hours in, you're just like, what is going on? Oh, he's meeting Sephiroth. That didn't happen until the second disc. What's going on? And I was like, okay, it's a alternative time bending,
timey-wimey shenanigans.
And I don't want to. I'm going to say spoilers for it. Like, there's certain characters are alive. Certain characters who affected the game and drove the story are apparently alive. So I'm like, that big moment where Eris dies, that's probably going to be retconned, and or like that's not going to happen.
This time Tifa dies.
Yeah, something's going to happen.
Who gives a fuck?
And I'm just like, okay, so that bit, one of the most moving parts of the game, gamers cried, is going to be like taken away, and maybe it's for a new audience. I don't know. It's not made for like the people who originally played it back in 1997. But yeah, it's just like, wow. Square Enix, what other games do they have on currently that they own that you'd be interested in if they was to happen?
Well, I'm still interested in mainline Final Fantasy. 10 is the last one of like the single player mainline ones that I genuinely loved. Like, this on my arm is based on Final Fantasy 10. That's how much I love it. Obviously 11 was an MMO. I didn't play it. I played like an hour of it for our 25th anniversary series that we did back in 2017, and it was painful. I think it's probably one of those games you just had to be there. 12, I've never been able to get into. I started it like 4 times, and I just never made it more than halfway. I just can't get into that game. 13, I think it's got some good stuff, but it's extremely streamlined and narrow, and half the cast are irritating.
Boring.
So, yeah,
fucking boring.
Yeah, it's literally a march down a corridor.
20 hours to get to the open area, and people are like, oh, it gets good then. I'm like,
it does
it?
It's just the same thing, but in an open field, basically. I like the battle system. I love the music, and I like a couple of the characters. I think it's an okay game. I don't think it's a good Final Fantasy game, but I think it's an okay game.
They had to release 2 sequels to rectify it.
to try and get their money back.
Trying to like salvage that.
Yeah, 13.2 is actually good. Lightning Returns, I never got more than about 10 hours into it. I just can't. Games that have like time limits, can't do it. I don't want to be rushed. But 14, I love. Like, again, Tattoo. That's probably one of my favourite games of all time at this point. I wish that was on Xbox, because I play it on PC, but it'd be nice to have it on my main console platform. 15, as I said, it's very unfinished. I haven't played it since they did the Royal Edition update, so I don't know how much they fixed with that. I haven't played any of the DLC. They did like chapters for them, like a DLC chapter for each of the other party members. Haven't played any of those. But the game as it came out was very unfinished. It felt very hacked together. But there is a lot to like in there, and it is a good looking game. But it just felt like very rushed and unfinished. 16, though, is being made by a lot of the people that worked on 14, and especially on the Heaven's Ward expansion, which is amazing. And I really like the look of 16, and unfortunately, it's timed exclusive. So even without, even without Sony buying Square Enix, if they're going to, I still wouldn't be able to play it day one. It's like 6 months until it hits PC, I think, and then a year until it can go to other platforms. But given how Final Fantasy VII Remake has gone, like it's still exclusive, even though it was only exclusive for a year, and it's been 2 years. Who the hell knows? Even if Sony don't buy Square Enix, is it ever going to come to Xbox?
Yeah, I mean, I like the look of the Final Fantasy 16. They've gone back to the sort of swords and shields and medieval look, which I personally quite prefer. So I like fantasy over sci-fi more in terms of like the world and lore and stuff. So that looks interesting. I mean, hopefully there's no steampunk elements to it, which they tend to fuse the two together. Hopefully it's just pure like old school Final Fantasy with the wizards and and
Black
all
mages and white
paladins
mages
and all that shit, which I'm more than happy for, because I prefer that sort of game and setting than I do sort of sci-fi settings. Even though when it comes to movies, I do like sci-fi. It's just a preference. Like I prefer the lore of fantasy than I do of sci-fi. It just makes it a bit more interesting. But yeah, I mean, like I said, man, like what other, is there any other titles that Square Enix own at the moment that you'll be interested in if it did move to PlayStation, be owned by Sony?
I think in terms of their big stuff, it probably is only Final Fantasy, honestly. Like Dragon Quest, they've announced Dragon Quest 12, but I never really got into Dragon Quest. Played a handful of hours of Dragon Quest 8 and Dragon Quest 11, and
Yeah, Dragon
they're
Quest.
fine, but I'm
I
not
like
that
Dragon
fussed.
I like Dragon Quest.
But again, that's another one that Nintendo would lose if Sony were to buy Square Enix, because those do big numbers on Nintendo platforms.
They're really good for Nintendo platforms.
Yeah, they remade a bunch for the 3DS, the old ones, and then obviously 11 is on Switch. Got the definitive edition on Switch, which also later came to Xbox.
I wonder if they'll, like, if Sony did buy Square Enix, would they do like a Chrono Trigger sort of remake or sequel or something like that? That's owned by Square Enix, isn't it? That IP. I wonder if they would that. I mean, people will lose their shit. Even people who weren't around when that game was released and probably don't really know about it will probably lose their shit. So,
yeah, I mean, oh Jesus, how could I forget this? Completely forgot. The one that would kill me, Final Fantasy, would be, well, Final Fantasy and Nier together. Like, if they're going to do any more Nier games, yeah, it would make me cry if they were going to be locked to PlayStation. So as things stand at the moment, obviously I can't really get that excited about Final Fantasy 16 because I don't have a platform to play it on. Like, I can't even play it day one on PC. I have to wait 6 months, and that doesn't make me want to. Like, we said this before when we discussed the KOTOR remake. Timed exclusive deals don't make me want to buy the platform that it's timed exclusive to. It just makes me pissed off and just want to tell everyone to get lost instead. But yeah, like the only thing I'd be interested in on PS5 at the moment is Final Fantasy 16, and I'm not going to buy a whole new £500 console, especially one that's very hard to find still, just to play what is ostensibly a third-party game. So I'm stuck waiting 6 months to play it anyway, unless Sony do buy Square Enix and then lock it down completely. In which case, I would have to begrudgingly buy a PS5 or see if I could borrow one from someone for a month or something. But yeah, I guess if Square Enix were bought by Sony, I probably would end up buying a PS5 at some point, because I wouldn't want to miss out on Nier and Final Fantasy. But hopefully, like Sony, we talked about this in the recent podcast, Sony are moving more towards PC now. So I guess another question is, if they did buy Square Enix, do you think they'd continue to push towards PC, or do you think they'd go, actually, do you know what? We've got all these big IPs now. We've got all our own IPs. We've got Final Fantasy. We're just going to go back to only being on console and drive people towards our own ecosystem.
No, I think they're missing out on a big chunk of. I think a lot more people playing PC now, especially with Game Pass, where Ultimate, where you can play on either PC or Xbox, which we do. I think they're missing out on a lot there. I think that's if they do buy Square Enix, they want to add it to their PlayStation equivalent. What's it called?
Spartacus, or
Whatever
that was the code name.
code name. But even though it's not
I forget
PlayStation,
what they actually called it.
Even though it's not it's not a Game Pass. It's their sort of like poor man's equivalent. I think they would want to put it on PlayStation. They would have it on PC. I think they're making their moves there, and I don't think they're going to go back and regress. I think they want to sort of tap into that market a bit more because they've always been that. Everyone's always going, "Oh, you can't play it on PC, so you've got to have a PlayStation. That's what makes it good." But now PlayStation go, well, there's quite a lot of money to be made there. I mean, we're missing out, man. We're going to put the feelers out. We'll put a couple of titles out here.
See how it goes.
See how it goes. I mean, like the ports haven't been great, but they're getting better at it, and I think they will. They will have them. They want to have a presence on PC. Like they're like looking at Xbox and going, fuck, they get all their games are on there. That's a big presence to have on there for our rivals. And even though if people are not playing it on the Xbox, they're still playing their games. It was just like we're missing out a bit, quite a lot there, and they're buying all these publishers. You know what I mean? They could have their own launcher. I don't think they're going to rival Steam, but there'll be an option to do that. And PlayStation will probably go, yeah. I mean, we're missing out here a lot, chaps. And I mean, like Final Fantasy remakes on PC.
Only on Epic until, well, I think that deal runs out next month, so that'll probably come to Steam next month.
I mean, yeah, it could be done. I mean, I don't see why they would sort of dip their toes in there and then sort of pull out and go, well, we're just going to keep everything on PlayStation. I think they probably do want to sort of look into that market and buying Square Enix and putting it on their Spartacus and you can play it on PC or PlayStation sort of makes quite a bit more sense, especially with Steam Deck out now. We can have it handhelds because they're giving up on their handhelds. Vita's just died a sad, painful death.
Rip Vita.
Vita, sorry, died a sad death, which is a shame. I have one. I quite like it.
It's great. I love the Vita.
Like handhelds are just dead now because everyone can play it on their iPads or phones or on their on their laptops, like what we got. I kind of feel like they're gonna have it. I mean, like Tomb Raider is available on PC and Mac. You can play it there. When they used to own that, they sold that off. So, you know. Oh, no, wait. What am I saying? PlayStation didn't own that. What am I talking about? That Square Enix did. So
yeah,
they have their presence on PS on PC. So I think they would probably still, to make my point. Yeah, they probably want to have more games or more of their games on PC.
Yeah, I think what Microsoft realized a good half decade ago at this point, and that Sony are just kind of starting to realize in the last year or two, is that there is a lot of people on PC that are not going to buy your console, but they will buy your games if you go to where they are. So it's like, people that mainly or entirely play on PC, they don't want a console. So they just can look at those games and go, yeah, I'd play them if I had access to them, but I'm not going to buy another piece of hardware for it. If you then take that game and go, okay, we'll put it on Steam or wherever you like to play your games, and people go, yeah, okay, I'll buy it now. So I don't think really you're losing. I mean, there might be you might lose some people that go, what do I need this piece of shit console for anymore? Throw it in the trash and I'm going to buy a PC. I think that's a very small number of people that would do that. I think there's a much bigger number of people that would otherwise wouldn't play your games that now will and now buy them. And I hope Sony go more in on PC because like I say, most of their first-party stuff does nothing for me. Like, I couldn't care less about Uncharted. Don't really care about God of War. I played the last one on PS4. I thought it was fine. Not particularly fussed about it. Don't care about Days Gone. Ghost of Tsushima doesn't really appeal to me. It just looks very, very Assassin's Creed. Most of their stuff, I don't care. Like, I'm glad I got to play the Last of Us games. If there's another one, hopefully it comes to PC. But I'd like to play Horizon Forbidden West. I imagine that will come to PC at some point because the first one did. But I can wait. Like, even if it's 2 years down the line, I'm in no rush. I don't need to play it immediately. So if they do buy Square Enix, then hopefully they'll continue along this path of pushing into PC, and I can just play those games like Final Fantasy and Nier and whatnot on PC. I'd prefer if they didn't buy them, but I'm sure there are plenty of PlayStation people that would much have preferred Microsoft to not buy Bethesda or not be trying to buy Activision. So when someone gets acquired, there's always someone losing out, and it's just the way of the business, I guess. But hopefully, with both of what used to be called the HD twins back in the PS3, 360, and Wii days, both Sony and Microsoft are pushing onto PC, then I think you're probably okay if you can slap a PC together or find one pre-built somewhere. Because I think they're both going to be. I mean, Microsoft are already there; all their games are going to PC. Sony are pushing more into it, and I really hope Sony get to the point where their games are day and date on PC. Not necessarily for me, but just so people don't have to wait arbitrary amounts of time for no real reason or benefit.
Possibly. I don't think they will come out day one, because I think it just costs more money to have simultaneously building a game for a console and then building it for PC. I think they won't do what Xbox do and have it both out day one. I think they'll have certain games, like what they're doing now. They'll just wait and then bring it out like a year later or something like that to see if it's profitable, because it's all about the bottom line with because they got, if they're first party games, they got to be bangers. They can't afford to take spend X amount of money on AAA title and have it not make a return or a profit. It has to be a banger. So they, like with Days Gone, that's why it's not getting a sequel, because it didn't meet the expectations, even though it sold pretty well. They put a lot of money into that, so they have to see a return. And if it's not a return, if they don't make a profit, they're not going to put a sequel out. But they did release that on PC just to see if they can make more money from it. But with PlayStation, it's always got to be a bang, because they're always like top of the line, state of the art, like visuals and gameplay.
They did recently buy Nixis, who are known for being like a PC port specialist. So, but obviously they can only do so much work. So I imagine they're not. I imagine they're not currently porting all of Sony's first-party stuff to PC, because they just wouldn't have the bandwidth for that. But yeah, I mean, even if their stuff comes like a year later, it's better than not coming at all. And as I've said, even if like Forbidden West comes 2 years after the PS5 release or PS4 and 5 release, that's fine by me. I can wait. I'm in no rush. There are very, very few games that I care about playing day one.
I would like a Last of Us on PC instead of making remasters and remakes. They're doing a remake of Last of Us, aren't they?
Still don't get that, but I kind of feel like that would maybe be a good avenue for a PC release of the first game.
Yeah, I mean,
if they're making a remake of it, slap it on PC too.
I mean, like, come on. The game still looks great, even on the PS3 version. There's a PS3 version. There's a PlayStation 4 version. Is there a PS5 version?
I'm not sure. I think they updated Last of Us 2 for PS5. I don't know if they did with the first one.
Right.
But I mean, I played the PS4 remaster just before the Last of Us 2 came out to kind of refresh my memory, and it's still a really good looking game. Don't really see why it needs a remake, but here we are. It just seems like a waste of time and money to me, but
yeah, we are, man. There we are. The if Sony buys Square Enix, for me personally, I'll be like, Okay. It's like certain people go, well, they bought Bethesda. I don't care. They, it doesn't make. I don't lose anything. I don't really like their games, which is fair enough. With me, with Square Enix, if we lose Final Fantasy, I'm like, oh, it's a shame, but I haven't really been into Final Fantasy since 10. Really passionate about it. So it's not really a big deal for me. I know you, like you say, you're a big Final Fantasy fan, so it would be a big loss for you, and losing Nier. But with me, it's not really that much. I know if they do acquire them, the internet will, like Twitter, will explode like it's the best deal ever, and the console war is over, and that's the death kill of Xbox, even though they have like literally like a ton of like RPG studios now, mad amounts, where they don't have to rely on one RPG. They've got like so many people making RPGs for them. So
yeah, like I say, there are only a few games that I absolutely must play day one. Most stuff I'm content to wait. Halo is a day one game. Final Fantasy is a day one game. Nier is a day one game. So like, if I lost access to two of those, that would be pretty upsetting. But yeah, I mean, maybe if Sony did own them, then there wouldn't be, because obviously, like Square Enix will put pretty much all their stuff on PC anyway, other than stuff that is like made exclusively for, say, Nintendo, like Bravely Default 2. So maybe if Square Enix were owned by Sony, then they wouldn't actually delay the PC version, kind of paradoxically. Because we already know 16 is going to be on PC. It's 6 months delayed because of this stupid Sony deal. Maybe if Sony actually owned them, they wouldn't have felt the need to do that deal, and it would have just come day and date. But who knows? All we can do is wait and see what happens, I guess. As you said when we first started talking about this, anything can happen. I think that's been ably proved in the last year or two. Literally anything can and will happen. Microsoft buying publishers, like came out and bought Bethesda, which just was a huge atom bomb dropped on the industry, and then one up themselves by going after Activision. Sony have bought Bungie. Like, who would have seen that come in? And then Embracer buying Crystal Dynamics, when people, like, a lot of people like, Microsoft should buy Crystal Dynamics. They're making Perfect Dark anyway, and they need more third-person action adventure games. And then Embracer buys them out of nowhere. So you can't predict this stuff, I guess. You can just kind of talk about what might happen.
Who knows? Maybe Embracer bought them and then we'll sell them onto Xbox. Like you say, they don't really make AAA games, man. That's not their thing. They don't really. I don't think they have the money, the facilities to produce a big like Tomb Raider game like the last trilogy. I don't think they can really do that.
Yeah, I'm skeptical, because they most of a lot of their studios are like mobile studios, and a lot of the other ones are very small, and then most of them are like sort of AA level.
Maybe they're making a mobile game of Tomb Raider Milk Cow.
Yeah, have the entire Crystal Dynamics team making a mobile game.
Yeah, could happen.
But yeah, again, another thing that we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens. They've announced a new Tomb Raider, so we're just going to have to wait and see what comes of it. But I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you all for listening and watching. If you're on YouTube, looking at our beautiful faces.
Yeah.
And you can find this on many podcast audio platforms, which I'm sure Paul will remind me of which ones we're on
Amazon,
right now.
Audible, Google Play, Google podcasts, basically everything apart from iTunes.
Everything apart from iTunes, because we hate Apple
Music. It's just a pain in the ass to like set it up there, because with the other ones I can just sort of click, post my link, and they accept it. With Apple, I have to have an Apple account, then sign into that. It's just like a massive ball ache. I'm just like, I don't really want an Apple account, so I don't really want to set one up. So unfortunately, can't get it on there, but you can get it on other podcast platforms. The biggest one being Spotify.
And also, again, if you want to see our faces, we're always putting these on YouTube. And you can always come back and check out our YouTube for gameplay stuff, and our Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Game with Chums, where Paul is frequently streaming games, playing Dragon Age.
Bit too much.
He's playing Dragon Age Origins at the moment, so if you want to see some D&D fun, jump on that. I've actually got to pull my finger out and start recording stuff again because I haven't done anything since getting COVID 2 months ago.
Yeah, since February, you last uploaded a video.
Oops. Yeah, I need to get back to doing some stuff.
God damn it.
Also, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Tumblr, on Instagram, all these good social platforms. Facebook too, if anyone cares about Facebook anymore.
Twitter.
Yeah, said Twitter.
Did you say Twitter?
I did. Twitter. Said it again. Until 2 weeks from now, we'll see you on the next episode when we'll be talking about another fantastic topic.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good one.
And
we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye. Right, got a minute before this they close. I can't believe they did this. Can't believe they've done this.
Yeah, see it on the screen. Remaining time 1 minute 5 seconds.
All right. Yeah, man. I'll probably see you next weekend for Liam's birthday.
Yeah. Are you getting up there? Are you taking the train?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know if Dom's going to come up there with us, so he might drive up there, but I don't know yet. So yeah, see what happens. But I'll probably more than likely be a train. I don't think anyone else is coming from London.
No.
Like Dan or anything. I don't think he's coming.
All right, fair enough.
I think he said he's got work the next day. So
yeah.
All
right. Yeah. Well, I'll see you there then.
All right, man.